So welcome to Ramp It Up Week 2. Today we're going to talk about multiplying and dividing positive rational numbers. And if you do well on this quiz, you will get out of tutorials. So there's real benefit for doing your best on this. The first 5 questions are going to be practice, and then we'll kind of go over the answers together. And then the next 8 questions that you'll have, there'll be another video. You'll need to get 6 out of 8 of those correct in order to get out of tutorials. So today we're going to talk about multiplying and dividing positive rational numbers. In simplest form, let's just make it easy and let's talk about multiplying and dividing fractions and decimals, because fractions and decimals are in fact rational numbers. So the first thing I want to do, let's just break it down. Go back to basics. We're going to multiply, how about 2/3? We're going to multiply by 1/4. This little dot here just represents multiplication. So 2/3 by 1/4, it's a lot simpler than adding and subtracting fractions because you don't have to find a common denominator. All you have to do is just multiply straight across. 2 times 1 is 2. 3 times 4 is 12, and then of course we want to simplify that. Common factor of 2 and 12 is 2. 2 goes into 2 once, 2 goes into 12 6 times, and boom, that's it, 1/6. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. So that's multiplying fractions. Let's go ahead and talk about multiplying mixed numbers. So you might have a situation where you see a problem and it's a whole number 2 and you're multiplying it by 1 1/2. You're looking at that a little crazy, thinking, how do I start this? Well, we can always change a whole number into a fraction, simply dividing it by 1. It doesn't change the value. 2 divided by 1 is still 2. So let's go ahead and change that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take this 2, we're going to change it to an improper fraction. So 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3, and we keep the denominator. So it's going to be 2/1 times 3/2. Again, once we do that, it's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Just multiply straight across. 2 times 3 is 6. 1 times 2 is 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. And that's your answer. So that's multiplying a whole number by a mixed number. And if we want to divide a fraction, we got to remember keep, change, flip. So let's go ahead and let's go back to this mixed number. And now rather than multiplying 2 by 1/2, let's go ahead and divide it by 1/2. So again, we rewrite the 2 as 2/1. We're going to divide it by 3/2, right? 2/1 divided by 3/2, you might have seen it like this, divided by 3/2. But either way, remember we're going to keep the 2/1. We're going to change the sign from division to multiplication, and we're just going to flip this. We're going to multiply 2/1 by 2/3, and then again we're just going to multiply straight across. 2 times 2 is 4. 1 times 3 is 3. That's improper. Makes a little more sense to convert it to a proper fraction. 3 goes into 4 once with 1 left over, and we're going to keep 3 in the denominator. So 1 1/3. Okay, that's about it for fractions. Multiplying and dividing fractions. Let's get into decimals. Decimals. Pretty straightforward. Let me take a simple, let's go 3.2. We're going to multiply that by, actually I should say 3 2/10, and we're going to multiply it by 6/10. Now, these decimals happen to be lined up. You don't line the decimals up. You do for addition and subtraction. It just happened that they lined up. I didn't line them up on purpose, so don't think that we've got to line those up. And then we just multiply like we usually would. We ignore the decimals until the very end. So 6 times 2 is 12. Carry the 1. 6 times 3 is 18. Plus 1, 19. Then we move 1, 2 places. 1, 2 places. And that gives us 1 and 92 hundredths as our answer. 1 and 92 hundredths. Let's see here. I think that's enough for decimals as far as multiplication. It's pretty straightforward. If this were a whole number, right, 3.2 times 6, right, we would just move the decimal over one place, and it would actually be 19.2. And you could imagine there's a decimal there, right? A whole number, there's always kind of an imaginary decimal at the end. I just don't want you to get confused and think we're lining the decimals up. We're not. We're just dealing with them at the end. Okay, so if we're going to divide decimals, it is pretty much the same thing. Let's go ahead and let's just use this one. Let's go with 3.2 divided by 6. Remember, 3.2 goes in the house, and we're dividing it by 6/10. Now when we do this, it's a little different. We deal with the decimals first rather than last. We move the decimal over one place. We move it over one place here, and then just plop it up there. So 6 goes into 32. 5 times, right? 6 times 6 is 36. That's a little high. So 5 times 6, 30. And then we subtract. 32 minus 30 gives us 2. 6 does not go into 2. Let's go ahead and drop a 0 down. 6 does go into 20. Goes in 3 times. And we go ahead 3 times 6, 18. 2. Drop another 0. Oh, we can see that this is going to be a repeating decimal, meaning the 3's are going to go on forever and ever and ever. So we can just signify that with the repeating decimal sign. So when we multiply decimals, we deal with the decimals at the end. When we divide decimals, we deal with the decimals up front, and then we just divide like we normally would. All right, good luck. We'll see you in a few minutes.